handsome face had a natural authority to it, and his muscular physique would have marked him as a warrior, were it not for the leather-cased stump of his missing right hand. There was a warm smile on his bearded lips, but Penelope could sense the concern behind it. Mentor was her chief adviser, and the closest thing she had to a friend ever since Odysseus had sailed to Troy. He knew her calm exterior was a facade, hiding the anxieties and uncertainties that were suddenly teeming within her after the arrival of the ships from Ilium. She may have fooled others with her display of regal restraint, bottling herself up in the palace and refusing to follow the crowds down to the harbour to hear the news from Troy, but not Mentor. Halitherses was to her right, his aging bulk so tightly packed into the high-backed chair that it seemed the arms would snap off at any moment. He was a veteran soldier, and had been a long-standing captain of the Royal Guard, though his mounting years and the scars of his many battles had prevented him from sailing with Odysseus to Troy. Instead, the king had given him joint stewardship of Ithaca, along with Mentor, to keep the island and its people safe in his absence. And they had not failed him, though the threats to the small kingdom were ever present and growing. Over the years they had repulsed a handful of raids from the mainland, where groups of armed brigands were filtering down from the north, and the rule of law was faltering in the absence of the Greek kings. And then there was the internal menace of Ithaca's own nobles, whose increasingly audacious demands were voiced through the wealthy and treacherous Eupeithes. Odysseus had bought Eupeithes' loyalty many years before with a place on the Corossia, but neither Halitherses nor Mentor trusted him. Fortunately, the people were loyal to their king, and the fear of Odysseus's return kept Eupeithes and his followers in check, for now. Penelope's gaze turned to the other two men. She had already been informed of their names, of course, but could barely equate the battle-hardened warriors before her with the youths she'd once known and had watched sail off to war. Eurybates, seated next to Halitherses, was an exceptional sailor who'd been keen to make the voyage to Ilium and exact revenge from the Trojans for stealing Helen, the pride of the Greeks. Now, as he sat before her, his short body looked as hard as if it had been carved from rock, and his curly hair was grown long and had been drawn back into a tail behind his neck. His eyes were tough and uncompromising, though as they rested on his queen for the first time in many years, there was a noticeable softness in them. The other man, Odysseus, she'd first known as a young shepherd boy with ruddy cheeks and a roguish grin. His father had been murdered by Taphian pirates, so Eperitus, Odysseus's captain, had taken him under his wing to teach him the profession of war, eventually taking him with him to Troy. Now he was a man, scarred and deeply sunburnt, with eyes that had grown sharp from watching foreign horizons and witnessing horrors that no boy's mind could survive. And yet his cheeks were still red, and unlike Eurybates, there was a light in his eyes that had survived the cruelty of war. It was like the glimmer of gold at the bottom of a pool that still spoke of happiness and memories of music and dancing, and of young girls in the long grass of Ithaca's meadows. It was then that she noticed the garland around his neck and the petals in his hair, from the welcome the ship's crews had received that morning. The sight brought a smile to Penelope's lips. "Welcome back, Odysseus. Welcome back, Eurybates. I hope your journey wasn't too perilous." "Not nearly as perilous as being home again," Eurybates replied, looking around at the walls. "I didn't realize how much I'd missed Ithaca, and the gods only know how we'll bring ourselves to leave again and return to that forsaken country." "We'll do it, because we're loyal soldiers sworn to obey Odysseus," Odysseus answered. "Aye, we will," Eurybates conceded with a nod. "But there's not another man in this world that I'd do it for." "Your words reveal more than the depth of your love for my husband," Penelope said. "The war, it seems, is not going well." "Not going well, my lady," Eurybates replied. "That's the problem. It's not going anywhere at all." "And you will tell us all about it," Penelope interrupted. "Every detail of everything that has happened since the last galleys were sent back 5 years ago. But I'm being a poor hostess. First, we will eat. Meat and wine will raise your spirits, and then you can tell us about the war and my husband's part in it." She nodded to Mentor, who snapped his fingers behind his ear and brought a servant scurrying out of the shadows. A moment later the steward was running from the hall with his orders, to return a short while afterwards, followed by a stream of slaves carrying tables, platters of food, and craters of wine. After washing her hands, Penelope led the libations to the gods by stepping up to the hearth and tipping a slop of wine into the flames. The others followed, muttering thanks to the Olympians as the liquid hissed and sent a puff of